absolutely wild as Vern Gagne's All-Star Wrestling goes coast to coast and continent to continent. The greatest wrestlers in the world.
He may be an apprentice carpenter, but I guarantee you he is a seasoned ring veteran.
I've been hit with bar stools, bar rags, barmaids.
I'm talking to you.
They're scared that Hulkamania's still running wild. Oh, yeah. I got a big fat wife and 9 kids at home, and I gotta feed them.
And take a look at Jesse the Body in real life.
Open your hand once if you would.
You want to see it?
This is absolutely unbelievable. Totally, completely out of control.
He's coming in over the top. Hey! Look out!
Hey, you don't have to worry about anybody coming over the top rope, or you know what? Because we don't go anywhere, right? We don't move fast. We don't do a lot of exercise or movement. But what we do is we talk about wrestling here in AWA Unleashed, which we like to think is the preeminent podcast dedicated to the American Wrestling Association, the AWA, our favorite wrestling territory in the history of the wrestling business. There's Mick. There's Joe. Hi, guys.
Hey, I just got done exercising. I sat down in the chair, and that's pretty much it for the day.
Yeah, good for you.
Thank you.
Baby steps.
Baby steps. Yeah, I actually plopped into the chair. It wasn't that I sat down, So
That's what we call couch cardio.
Absolutely perfect. Yeah, very good. Hey.
This is actually my weekly workout because I exercise the right to give the two of you shit.
Oh, well, you are Mr. Olympia. Well, when it comes to that. Okay.
You're Mr. 20 Amendment there. Okay. Yeah, the right to give people shit.
Yes.
What's going on, guys? I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was actually going to get into the business.
No. Let's for one time. Let's at least do a show.
Let's see if we can get done with the pregame before the 5-minute mark today.
No. All right. Okay. Here's the deal. We'll tell you about the show here in a minute. You want to be a Patreon member? Sign up. $4.99 a month. Okay. You guys want to talk about it while I put the little gimmick on the screen there?
If you're
okay,
not
never mind. I'll do it.
Oh, good. Okay.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Lower gimmick.
I was going to say, $4.99 a month, for the both of you that is still out there that are interested in joining our Patreon. You can certainly, we'll live chat you to death. We'll have background noise. We'll do a little bit of everything for you. And I'll send you a 5-pack of pictures, probably of, people you never heard of. Anything I'm missing here, guys?
$4.99 a month. Mick Karch will do $4.99 a month. Anything you want for $4.99 a month. Oh, my God.
Well, no, that's $5.99. I had an increase. Yeah.
Couple of pictures of
1-800, you got nothing. Here we go.
Isn't that the name of the podcast?
Well, that's it. Good night, everybody.
Oh my gosh. Hey, oh man, no, we love it. For $5 a month, you can support your favorite podcast, or you can support us if you want. You get the live chat, you get the watch alongs, which people love. We've got exclusive interviews. We just did one with Ken Anderson, very revealing and frankly very open one with Ken Anderson. We've had James Beard, we've had Herb Simmons. We've had a few more, and it's a lot of fun. For $5 a month, you get extra AWA content and just other goofiness. And I highly suggest that you do that, because plus you kind of get access to us during the live chat that, we talked about pretty intense stuff last time that, we don't touch on the podcast. We do in the live chat.
Absolutely. Well done, buddy.
All right.
And you can't forget the weekly self-denigration that we do.
Oh no! I mean, we have to self-denigrate. I mean, Mick self-denigrates several times a day.
No, not anymore. In my younger days, yeah, but not anymore.
Okay.
Is that self-denigration or never mind?
Never mind.
Some things are left. I don't need to visualize anything.
Yeah, that's
No,
probably-
you don't, Johnny Wad Chubik.
No,
And,
my porn name is Dick Gozinya.
That's it. It's over. This was such a great run, you guys.
Hey, congratulations on 137 and 1/4 shows.
And
Yeah.
we've made it past the 5-minute mark, and we're still into the preliminary bullshit. So
Well,
maybe next week we can do it under 5 minutes.
We can do it in under 5 minutes, but I'm still going to try and promote TeePublic here. You can see on the bottom, teepublic.com/Unleash Plus. You can get a Slick Mick coffee cup, which is something that I use on a regular basis, especially on the days of the podcast, because I can blatantly shill. We've got AWA Unleashed merchandise. We've got T-shirts. We've got hoodies. We got hats. We got phone cases. We got all sorts of things. And teepublic.com. It's where we have all of our merchandise. It's where Mick's got his merchandise as well. So if you feel like supporting us that way, go right ahead. So are we ready to actually jump into the business?
No, but let's do it anyway.
Okay, good. We have got a show tonight, and at first we were going to kind of piggyback off of last week's with the dislike baby faces, and we were going to go with the heels that you cheered, but we're going to extend it for submissions because we had a few questions about it. So if you've still got some ideas, email it, awaunleashedpodcast@gmail.com, because that's the best way. If you got anything, awaunleashedpodcast@gmail. Your your heels that you cheered for. So we're going to push that out a little bit. So we pivoted today. I've got most comedic characters in the description, but actually, Mick, that is incorrect. I'm going to let you guys, because we got a lot of stuff to get into in the next 53-ish minutes. I'm going to let you guys Mick, I'm going to let you set it up. And then Joe, you guys kind of go back and forth, and I'm just going to put the pictures up. That sounds good. So you can kind of explain exactly why my description is not entirely accurate, Mick.
There's one thing that Mick and I can do well. It's do the back and forth.
Oh yeah, we've mastered that. What we're going to do today, we've done a show on the greatest enhancement talent in the AWA before, and when you think of the main group, you think of your Kenny Jays and your George Kadaskis, your Tom Rocky Stones, maybe your Nacho Barreras, but there were hundreds, literally, of guys that came into the Twin Cities area, wherever AWA was taping TV, and their job, thus they were called jobbers or enhancement talent, was to make these stars look good on television. Some of these names that we're going to be talking about today will be familiar to you. Some will not at all, and maybe justifiably so. But we want to give them a moment to shine too. And, I mentioned this before. Dr. X, the late Dick Beyer, used to refer to these guys as the carpenters of the business because they built the main stars. They built the storylines. They went in there and they made the stars look good. A lot of times to no, great reward at the end besides a beaten and battered body. But we want to tip the hat to the guys this week.
Yeah, the shall we say unknown stars of All-Star Wrestling. You think getting on the television, it's all going to be glamorous, and then you step into the ring and you get the shit kicked out of you for 3, 5, 10 minutes. You lose, you take a paycheck, and you go home. And they did that week after week after week. And as you said, they helped build the stars of the AWA in the 60s, 70s, and even into the 80s before things really changed.
Let me ask one question before we get into it, guys. We know that sometimes in certain businesses, people don't like to accept the roles where, this is really where you're most beneficial to the company. Mick, you were around guys for many, many years. And I mean, Joe, your time, in the later stages of the promotion, did you ever get the sense that sometimes these guys were maybe a little resentful of their position being, the enhancement talent, the jobbers, or did you just get the sense that, hey, this is a team effort and I'm a part of this bigger picture that's at work?
That is a great question. 99% of the guys accepted their role, and they accepted it willingly. And they were, like Joe said, you get a chance to be on television once a week. You had a 6-hour drive from Milwaukee or an 8-hour drive from Chicago. You picked up whatever you were paid, and then you went home. Sometimes you worked a house show. You got a little benefit. For the most part, yeah, these guys just knew that's what their job was. And, they accepted it willingly. You look at a guy like Kenny J. My God, people still talk about him to this day. There were a couple of guys that thought, maybe I'm better than this. And, I don't like being relegated to the role of putting a guy over. Dennis Stamp, the late Dennis Stamp, was not real thrilled with being put in that role. But yeah, if you knew your job and you could go in there and make the Stars look good, people knew you. They knew you like their next door neighbor week after week. And so for the most part, Chris, I would say it was an accepted thing.
Yeah, a little side note about the enhancement talent of the day. And I'm, referring back to the 60s, 70s, and 80s again. It was during a time, especially 60s, 70s, early 80s, or shall we say BC, before cable, where people would have where you lived in your local area, you had maybe 3 or 4 channels to watch television. Home video recorders were not a thing. Certainly cell phones with built-in cameras were not a thing. So being on television, having yourself recorded on video was a pretty big thing, and as Mick said, the Kenny J's, George Scrap Iron Gadaskis of the world, they became known because they were on television. Forget the fact that they'd go, on every week and get the snot beat out of them. Being on television or video back in the day, it meant something, as opposed to today. You've got hundreds of channels to choose from, dozens of streaming services, social media stuff. It's no big deal to be on video anymore. Hell, we're doing a podcast and it's on video nowadays. That wasn't even thought of 20 years ago or beyond. But let's get right into it. So who do we have coming up first? Chris, get that first photo up there, young man.
Let's take a look and see who we've got. Now, that obviously is a more recent photo, and I don't even know how recent it is. Certainly not from his wrestling days, but that is Caesar Pabon. And Caesar would come in, I believe he was from the Milwaukee area, and he would come in with a group of guys every week to do the job on All-Star Wrestling. Caesar, as it says on his hat, was actually a Korean War veteran for this country. And God bless him for his service. He was typically a babyface. I certainly don't remember too many times when Caesar Pabon came in and worked as a heel, but he got into the ring with the best of them. And it didn't matter. It didn't matter if it was the Vachons of the world or whoever it might be, Patterson and Stevens, whatever. Caesar Pabon, great, great guy, and he deserves kudos for all the work he did back in the AWA enhancement days.
Yeah, I'm guessing the win-loss record was not too favorable, but his work inside the ring definitely was.
Yeah, I don't remember Caesar ever winning a match on All-Star Wrestling. He may have, I don't know. I know he was training people in the Milwaukee area to get into the business. So again, hats off to Caesar Pabon, one of our favorites.
Moving on to the next one. Herman Schaefer.
If Herman Schaefer has his name on a Wrestling Legends card, by God, Chupik, there's hope for us yet. Honestly, though, I would love to get Herman on our show. He also lives in the Milwaukee area. I understand he's had some health issues, so I don't know if that's going to happen. But big dude, I don't remember how tall he was, but he had to be pushing 300 back in the day. And he would come into the ring, and he was a monster heel. Always gave a good accounting of himself. Not exactly your Lou Thesz high flyer, but he would get into the ring and punch and kick and pound until his eventual demise in the ring. But Herman Schaefer, I loved watching Herman. You know, he reminded me kind of Lurch, you know, and or the Addams Family or the Munsters or whatever. But again, a regular on All-Star Wrestling.
I'm still trying to get over the fact that he made it onto a Wrestling Legends card. Now I'm curious, who put out that series? Any idea?
Yeah. No, and you know, you could contact them and try a little payroll or payola for us and see if we can get our name on. I know we're on other cards, you know, that we don't necessarily want to be on and lists and so forth. But yeah, good for Herman. Good for Herman.
All right, moving on to our next enhancement talent. I still got to go with Jobber, just the way I was brought up.
All right, there he is. That is, you know, despite his imposing presence, the one-loss record again is lopsided in the L column. That is Bad Man, Jose Quintero. And the Bad Man was a good friend of Eddie Sharkey's back in the day. And this is more 1960s. I believe he was still here coming into the early 70s. Bad Man Jose, whose real name was Joe something or other, he was from upstate New York, would come in, and he looked like Fidel Castro.
That's great. Joe something or other. I mean, there's a guy out there named Jake something. So, yeah. I mean, maybe that's great. Joe something or other.
Joe something. That might be his last name. I'm sure there's not too many of those.
Chupik's got a new gimmick now, too.
There you go. Yeah.
I'm Joe nothing or other.
Jose Quintero's claim to fame, he had a couple of them. First of all, when he would come into town, I believe, if I remember correctly, Eddie Sharkey told me that he would, this is a fact, it was either at the Dykeman Hotel where he got a small room, or he was actually staying in the closet at Eddie Sharkey's house when he came in to do his AWA gigs. His other claim to fame is that every match on television, no matter who it was against, he did the job. And then he would stand up, and his broken English, he would say to the referee, "You give me a fast cut, you son of a bitch." And week after week after week, I don't know if he's still with us. My guess is that he's not. But Bad Man Jose Quintero, ladies and gentlemen, one of the legends.
Chris, could you put that one back up for a quick sec? I've got to ask, what the hell has he got on his head? It looks like he's auditioning as a character on the Jetsons or something.
I think. Where is he? There he is. I think that may be a hair dryer. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if he thinks he's going to war. Bad Man Jose really never knew where he was anyway, so I'm not sure that he didn't grab a mixing bowl, off the kitchen shelf. That his wife was going to bake a cake in, put it on his head, and scrambled him up a little bit. I don't know, but there he is.
I gotta believe tequila was involved before that picture. I'm just guessing.
I'm sure you're just guessing.
Yep. All right, let's move on to the next enhancement talent. Chris, who do we have?
Drum roll.
Besides please. Dead Air, which would be a great name for a.
There he is. We've mentioned him before.
I'm still connected, by the way, guys. Just to let you know,
Hi, Chris.
I'm still connected.
We know you've got connections. This guy right here, ladies and gentlemen, is the Great Dane. I don't know what was great about him. He came into the now as thin as he looks. There was a guy that unfortunately I could not find a picture of, or we would have had him on this list. Hank Meadows, that we talked about before, the wrestler, not the chef. The Great Dane was a regular on AWA TV in the 1960s, and as a matter of fact, and this is a record, he pinned Vern Gagne On an episode of All Star Wrestling way back in the day, Vern was assaulted by Mitsu Arakawa. Unbeknownst to the referee, Mitsu hit Vern with a karate chop, and Vern, I believe, put over the Great Dane on television. I think Dane's name was John Dante, something like that. But yeah, again, let's give him his due. AWA enhancement guy.
My only question has got to be, since he pinned Vern in the ring, did he ever get the title shot? He pinned Vern Gagne.
Unfortunately for the Dane, it was a non-title match, as was virtually every match he ever had in his life.
So he went into the doghouse. Gotcha.
There you
go. Well, I mean, if he's great, he pinned Vern. If he wouldn't have pinned Vern, he just would have been the average Dane.
Average Dane. Yeah, very good.
Let's move on to the next one.
It pains me to call this guy an enhancement talent. That is Moose Morowski. Moose was passed away not all that long ago from Canada. He was a great talent. And as a matter of fact, the AWA put him together with another guy from Canada, Gilles the Fish Poisson, as a tag team, moderately successful in the AWA. Moose Morowski was a big, tough guy. Outside the ring, a sweetheart. The reason that I put him on the enhancement list, not only, he came in, he did jobs as Moose Morowski, but I've mentioned before, he wrestled as Mike Jankowski, Stan Pulaski, Mike Pulaski, Stan the Moose, Moose Murlowski with an L, and Moose Morowski, and who knows what else, all on AWA television at one time or another, not just around the country and in Canada. He appeared under all those names on AWA TV, and surprisingly, the wrestling fans didn't recognize him.
With all of those names that you just rattled off that he went by, I've got to guess he has a little Polish heritage to him. A lot of skis at the end of...
He's got more skis than Aspen, and that Moose Morowski, Murlowski, Pulaski, Jankowski, Dick Jankowski, whatever he is, but he was a good one. He moderately doesn't belong on this list, but he came in and he did jobs, so there he is.
Okay, let's move on to the next one. Chris, who can you drum up for us?
Now, this is a talent. This is a talented guy. He did not win on AWA television, but it was one of these guys, Joe, kind of like Buddy Lane out of Canada, our friend Dave Cochin, that would come in and do the job, but always give a good accounting of himself. And that is Ricky Hunter. And Rick wrestled extensively in the 70s and the 80s in the AWA, went to the southern United States and actually put on a mask and wrestled as the Gladiator. Rick Hunter, again, one of these guys that he was an enhancement guy, but you always held out hope that maybe somehow he was going to crash the nugget and get the victory over one of the heels. Always wrestled as a babyface and always gave a good account of himself. Again, he passed away not too long ago, as so many of the veterans from back in the day are passing. But Rick Hunter, good one.
I actually remember Ricky Hunter, seeing him as a young kid, and always thinking he looked the role of a professional wrestler, with all due respect to the Herman Schaefers of the world, who were, shall we just say, a little misshaped. Ricky Hunter, as you could see in that photo, I mean, he looked like a professional wrestler. And from my memory, he actually worked pretty damn well in the ring. So I'm not surprised that he was able to go to another territory and make something of his career beyond just selling and building up the talent. He was more than an apprentice carpenter.
There you go. That's
okay.
Right.
Chris, what can you do for us next? Reach into that vault.
There's a guy, and I don't mean Marty Miller in the background. That is Torpedo Guzman. Raul Torpedo Guzman. He was one of these guys, again, 70s and 80s, would come in. I don't know if he was Milwaukee. I think he was Chicago. which is where the AWA got a lot of their enhancement talent. Kind of a nondescript guy. I don't think I ever saw him wrestle as a babyface. He might have and gotten the shit kicked out of him by some heel at some point along the way. Torpedo Guzman was, again, kind of like your Cesar Pabons of the world. He would come in consistently to the AWA, and he was one of these guys. A lot of times the AWA would tape 2 shows at, back to back at the All-Star Wrestling Studios, and he would come out for that second time. He wrestled on the first show. He would come out the second time, and the crowd would emit a collective groan. Oh no, do we have to see this guy again? So kind of like you and I, Joe, on our dates in high school. But nobody saw us again. Yeah, or on the podcast. But Torpedo Guzman, not one of my favorite guys. Kind of had an attitude outside the ring, but nonetheless, when you look at the list of AWA guys, might be down towards number 150 or something. But yeah, Torpedo Guzman, Raul Torpedo Guzman. There you go.
I've got a it is an off-topic question or thought. Have we ever done an episode about the referees of the AWA?
I don't know. Chris, have we done that?
I think we did. I think it was a while back. I would have to check. I mean, we could certainly do another one because obviously I feel like the content would be the same, but I feel like maybe the presentation would be completely different.
Oh, it would.
Yeah, because I don't remember, during my time on AWA Unleashed that we ever did one. You brought up Marty Miller.
If you want to do a show about referees, Joe, we can.
Well,
we can do it.
I'm just throwing it out there as a show idea because
I like it.
It fits in well with what we're talking about now because the referees were the ultimate enhancement talent.
Yeah,
they really were. And so anyway, it was just a thought that popped into my head. We're semi-scripted on this show if you didn't know already. And anyway.
Yeah, let's do it. Production meeting live on the air. We got Eric this week, and then maybe we can do it like next week and it'll drop in a couple of weeks. Maybe that's kind of a way we can maybe get ahead a little bit and maybe we can put a show in the can, but we'll figure that out down the road.
Perfect.
Cool.
All right. And production meeting, back to work in 3, 2, 1.
All right.
Okay. What do we have next?
Fuck, now I lost my spot. Hold on.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. Production meeting over. Next. Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah, you wanted it. We're back on track.
Okay.
There we go. That is in the AWA area. He wrestled under 2 different names. He wrestled as Bill Todd, Todd, and he also wrestled as Leroy Hirsch. It is actually Winnipeg promoter Al Tomko. And Al would come in and do the jobs here in the AWA in the 1960s. I don't recall if he went into the 70s or not, but he was a big-time promoter up in Winnipeg. And as Bill Todd and as Leroy Hirsch, and I don't know why they changed his name, I have no idea. He was one of those guys, became kind of a regular here in the AWA. Coming in from Winnipeg was a little more difficult than it was for the guys from Chicago and Milwaukee. He would appear in what they called the Losers Battle Royals, where they would get maybe 8-10 of the enhancement guys on TV to be in an over-the-top rope battle royal at the main show, and he didn't do very well there either. But
I think if you're going to have a losers battle royal, isn't the point to lose? You have to want to get thrown over the top rope. There's the gimmick.
You're absolutely right, and you got to know that a guy who's strangling himself and his eyes are going back in his head like Mark Lewin, Purple Haze, maybe the Undertaker. You would figure that this guy had something to offer the AWA. Unfortunately, he was probably getting tossed out second or third in the Losers Battle Royal. Always won, by the way, by either Eddie Sharkey or Kenny J. But nonetheless, there he is, Bill Todd, Leroy Hirsch, Al Tomko.
Looks like he's watching a Vikings game on Sunday.
Not yet. Not this season.
Not
No,
this season. No.
Well, he watched the Twins the last month of the
Yeah,
season.
insert Minnesota sports team here. If it hasn't happened, it will.
There you go. All right, let's move ahead. Thank you, Al. Appreciate you stopping by, strangling yourself on camera there for our
And selling himself pretty darn well, too. I
Yeah,
have to
you
give him
better
credit
believe
for
that.
that. Okay,
All right.
Chris, what do we have next, or whom do we have?
That is not Ricky Nelson from the Ozzie and Harriet show.
Sure looks like it.
That is Dennis O'Brien, wrestled in the AWA in the early 1970s, the half brother of Nick Bockwinkel. That is Dennis O'Brien, Dennis Bockwinkel. Denny was a good-looking kid. He came in around the same time that Dennis Stamp. They actually worked shows together. You had Dennis Stamp, Dennis O'Brien. He obviously used the name O'Brien because nobody wanted him to be recognized as Nick's brother, kind of like they did with referee Bob Warren, Bob Bockwinkel. They didn't want anybody to get the connection, especially because Nick was working heel at the time. It just came into the AWA. Dennis was a great guy. He was so fun to be around. He went down to Texas, I believe, and worked for Paul Bosch for a little bit. And sadly, very sadly, left us very early on in his early 20s as a result of an accidental overdose. But Dennis O'Brien, I think there was potential there for Dennis.
Okay, I'm going to go a little side note here. So, Nick, you just said, mentioned two of his brothers. How many siblings did Nick Bockwinkel have, Mick?
That's a good question. You would think of all people I would know. I don't know if he had any other siblings besides Dennis, and Dennis was a half brother. Okay. I don't know if Nick had a female sibling or not. I really don't know. Good question.
Something we might have to look into and investigate a little bit. Maybe Darlene would know.
Yes, sir.
All right. So let's move on to the next one, Chris, our technical director in the background.
Yes, I am in the background. I am in the foreground. I am wherever I want to be.
Just don't be in the ground. We got to get through this show yet.
Yeah, not yet. All right. Let's see. That was number 9. Here is number 10.
Number 10. Boy, when you mention the legends in the AWA, of the enhancement guys, Tony Leone. And when I was doing AWA TV, Joe, and we were at the Showboat and we were at Whitewater, I always enjoyed introducing Tony Leone. Given it wasn't just Tony Leone, it was Tony Leone. And the Tonester took the biggest back body drop I have ever seen from Billy Jack Strong, Steve DeSalvo. It was in Whitewater. And I'm surprised that he didn't hit the lights or wind up in section 227 because he is launched. And it's somewhere on YouTube. But Tony Leone, another one of those guys, came in from just to the east of the Twin Cities area. And talk about your fixtures, your regulars on AWA TV. He was one. Tony Leone.
Remember getting those graphics typed many times. Tony was a regular out at the Showboat during.
Nice guy, very nice guy.
Yeah. Oh, and he did his job well.
Yes, sir.
As we've stated on here before. Let's move on to our next enhancement talent. A smaller version of. God, sort of looks like Ivan Podusky, but it's not.
It's not, but there's a reason he is made to look like Ivan Putski, and that is because he wrestled as Igor Putski in the southeastern part of the United States, NWA turf. That is AWA enhancement talent Rick Ferrara. And Rick was another one of these guys, came in, gave a good accounting of himself. I think he worked both heel and babyface, primarily babyface. Putting the guys over in the 1970s. He was a good talent. He was built like Putski. Obviously, you see from that picture, not as big as Ivan, certainly not as bulky, but, and Rick was not the tallest guy in the world, maybe 5'7", 5'8", something like that, but built like a brick shit house. And as Ricky Ferrara didn't do very much, but as Igor Putski, he did.
Did he come in after Ivan, or was it during Ivan's run?
I think it was, yeah. I mean, Ivan was working obviously on top here in the AWA or close to the top, and Ricky Ferrara at the time was one of just many, many enhancement guys that you saw week after week in the AWA. And obviously, Ivan saw something in him. I'm assuming that looked like, hey, why don't we do the brother act or the cousin act or whatever they did? And he took him to the southeastern part of the states, and he did very well.
Okay, and I'd asked that it's sort of, I find it curious if Igor Putski was here at the same time as Ivan Putski, if they thought about tag teaming them together here in the AWA or not.
Yeah. When he was here, though, he was Rick Ferrara.
Okay.
So he hadn't made the transition yet. And when he went NWA word, that's when they gave him the Igor Putski name. So he was just plain old Rick Ferrara here in the AWA.
I can't really say much for the creativity. I mean, they took the mighty Igor and Ivan Putski, combined them into a name, and Igor Putski, I don't know.
That's why he's on this list.
And fittingly. Oh, now this guy, we know who it is, Mick.
We know who it is, and we have another picture that we're going to put up in just a moment where he looks considerably different. That, of course, was the Boogie Woogie Man, Jimmy Valiant. And Chris, if you've got a picture of the blonde guy, hands on hips, looking off to the side. Nope, we're close enough. You should have a picture, Chris, of a guy. He's got his hands on his hips, looking off to the side, staring off in the distance.
Yeah, it slipped. So let me. It's here. See, this is the joy of
doing a live show.
No, that's all right. Hey, it happens. Have you got them? If not, we'll imagine.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure where it's. Yeah, I'm not sure if it loaded.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Let's go back to Jimmy Valiant. When he was here in the AWA in the
Sorry about that. Yeah, I had it. I knew it was there, but yeah, it just didn't load. It didn't load.
You wouldn't have recognized him anyway, and that's probably why you missed it. You're probably looking for a guy that looks somewhat like Boogie Woogie Man, and he didn't. So I covered. Jimmy Valiant, the Boogie Woogie Man, wrestled in the AWA as Jim Valen, Valen, back in the 1970s. Big strapping kid. I believe he worked primarily heel in the AWA. Looked like a 1950s rock star. Actually, with a bigger physique, kind of a nondescript guy. Again, he was a step above, you might say. So they would put him at house shows in Minneapolis and St. Paul and around the Horn in the AWA. But of course, once he left and he shed a few pounds and grew the hair out, grew the beard out, and became the Boogie Woogie Man, Jimmy Valiant, things really popped for him. But again, longtime AWA fans. And I believe it's on, you can find him on Google as well as Jim Valen, Valen, back in the AWA days. So again, amazing transformation for this guy.
And I mean, in his later years, becoming the Boogie Woogie Man, he had the whole dance routine down when he came out, and really got over. There's no doubt about that.
I'm gonna give you a little insight here, and this is kind of disgusting on a lot of levels.
Good. Well, it's perfect for the show.
Perfect for the show. Fits right in. Disgusting item number 17. He wrestled at Mission Creek Theme Park, I believe, in 1989. He came in for a Dale Gagner promotion, and the Boogie Woogie Man. He wasn't.
Yeah, that was gross.
Yeah, he was Boogie Woogie Man at the time. He came in. And I always wondered, these announcers that he's kissing on television, is he actually, he's not really kissing them on the mouth, is he? He's kind of putting his thumbs in. No, he actually was kissing them on the mouth. And the old slickster, this guy right here, Got a mouthful of Jimmy Valiant. He grabbed me at the end of a spot we were doing up there, and the stuff that nightmares are made of.
Did you swirl the tongue around like a counterclockwise swirl?
No, I didn't. But that, eventually led into that sex-crazed televangelist. So it kind of, things kind of spiraled out of control there.
Yeah,
but
that was I could see the connection between kissing Jimmy Valiant being a sex-crazed psychoanalyst, pastor, whatever they wanted you for the Springer show. So I mean, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah. So when you look at those old tapes of David Crockett and everybody else getting kissed by the Boogie Woogie Man, he wasn't holding back.
Those were his shoot kiss.
Yeah, I wish I would have shot myself after the kiss, but
I tell you, and he's still one of those guys that when you enter a room and he's there, like he's got that energy, like that Jimmy Valiant is in the room.
Runs a great training school down south, and Jimmy's probably about half what he weighed back in the day, but what a guy. And you're right, charisma personified, legendary in the business.
Well, I'd have to go a step further and say when he became the Boogie Woogie Man, he was half of what he was a decade prior.
Yeah.
He was definitely on the thin side.
Yeah, no question about it. Yeah.
So,
there you go.
All right, Chris, what do we have, or whom do we have next?
Drum roll and
hold on, we already used that. See, that one loaded, and the other one that we wanted to did not.
That's all right. Do we want to talk about that guy or no?
Oh, he is number 12 next. So I think he follows the Boogie Woogie Man.
Let's talk about him. That is Billy Christian. And Billy was a sporadic enhancement guy in the AWA 1970s. Again, he was a big dude, as you can see, great development, big, probably about 260. I always saw Billy wrestle as a babyface, and he came in continuously in the AWA area to do TV, wrestled some house shows around the Horn. He was Billy Christian in the AWA, and I believe elsewhere he wrestled as Big Bill Christie, kind of a variation on a theme. Not one of these guys that you're going to remember along with the Kenny Jays and the George Gadaskis of the world, but he was a good talent and a good hand, and because of his size and his look, a lot of times he would give whoever the star was on AWA television, he would give him a run for the money before he did the job. Billy Christian.
Don't remember him, but I got a smile when I looked in the lower right corner and it had Lil Al's photo on there. Did many of the promo pics back in the day.
Lil Al Vavasour.
I never knew what his last name was.
Yeah. One of the great photographers ever in wrestling. Now this guy right here, cock-a-doodle-doo.
Rooster!
Yeah, there he is. The old Rooster Griffin. And, had he teamed up with the guy that we talked about before, Hank Meadows, the guy who had the sunburn that Larry had smacked the shit out of, I think between Rooster and Hank Meadows, they had a combined weight of 107 pounds. It was Rooster, again, not the biggest guy in the world. You would figure with a name like Rooster Griffin, he might have this extravagant gimmick. He didn't. He just came into AWA television on a pretty consistent basis and got the crap kicked out of him and went home. He did have a modicum of success in the Indiana area, I believe. WWA, maybe into Illinois. So it wasn't, that he was pigeonholed here in the AWA area as a loser, but
Rooster was pigeonholed, huh?
Rooster was pigeonholed, yes, and he crowed about it quite often.
But Rooster was no gobbledygooker.
Well, nobody is.
This conversation. This conversation's for the birds.
It really is, and we can go other directions with this, and we're not going to. But Rooster Griffin, a regular. I don't know if they billed him out of Indianapolis or probably Las Vegas, because pretty much everybody who came in with long blonde hair and did the job was from Vegas or Hollywood back in the day. But Rooster Griffin, cock-a-doodle-doo, buddy.
He'd migrate into the AWA when needed. Okay, let's move. This whole podcast is for the birds.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next one, Chris. Who is our next enhancement talent?
There you go. Now, Joe, I don't know if you know this guy, recognize him.
No.
That's obviously a later picture. That is our good friend Tony Condello, the promoter in Winnipeg, Canada for West 4 Wrestling Promotions. Tony is the guy that you can blame for bringing me into Winnipeg back in 1986, doing the match, calling the action for Bob Brown and Bruiser Brody. Tony was a great guy. In the AWA, he was not Tony Condello. He was Tony Savoldi. So, I'm sure he was of Italian extraction. But Tony Condello, again, wrestled in the AWA as Tony Savoldi. Little guy, not very big at all. He was just a very small guy, would have worked well in the light heavyweight division, maybe even as a luchador these days. Always a baby face, never a heel, but didn't do very well. Always wound up with his shoulders on the mat. But Tony Condello, a great guy. And Tony, as a wrestling promoter up in Canada, would book these guys on, I forget the name of the tour, but the guys just dreaded it because they would go into farther north into Canada, into the absolute wilderness when it was 30, 40 below zero every winter. Everybody that I've talked to said it was hell on ice. But Tony would get the guy. I don't know what he was paying him, but they would go on this tour. But Tony Condello, Tony Savoldi, paid off pretty good in Winnipeg. Good payoff guy, decent guy.
I can see him being involved in one of those handicap matches against a Hulk Hogan. You get two smaller guys that they look like Skylo Low next to a Hulk Hogan.
There you go.
But again, enhancement talent that helped build up the stars back in the day. You don't really see enhancement talent so much today.
Joe, as close as you get to enhancement talent, we'll talk about this guy first. That is KO Kenny Yates. And Kenny Yates was an enhancement guy primarily in the 1960s here in the AWA. He was a former boxer. It was Kenny Yates and Kenny J. He always had one or both of the Kennys on AWA television week after week. Kenny, I don't think on TV that I can remember, won a match. Here's an interesting aside, or maybe not so interesting. When I was a fan sitting at ringside, I was giving Kenny Yates a little bit of heat one night. And between two losing falls, Kenny came up to right in front of where I was sitting in the stands and said, with your long hair, I don't know if you're male or female. To which some kid behind me said to Kenny, well, with your body, we don't know if you're male or whale. And yeah. And Kenny did not take too kindly to that. He had a couple of sons that wrestled. Kenny Yates Jr. and Rowdy Yates wrestled independently here in the state of Minnesota. But Kenny Yates, KO Kenny, another one of the guys in those losers battle royals pretty consistently. But he was a regular, and I mean regular, back in the day.
I noticed in that photo the trunks were a little, shall we say, bigger, covered up all the way up to the belly button.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can just look at a photo and guess the era by what they're wearing.
Yeah.
Even if it's only a pair of trunks. An interesting time, to say the least.
Yeah, they almost look burlappy, kind of. Yeah, I don't know how comfortable they were. KO Kenny Yates.
All right, and moving on to our next enhancement talent.
Boy, the dreaded German, whose real name was Lorne Corlett. There's a German name if you ever heard one.
It looks like he's got an asterisk on it. It's like
He wrestled here in the AWA. By the way, here he's wrestling as one of the Von Steiger brothers. I don't remember if he was Kurt or Karl Von Steiger. I think he was Kurt Von Steiger. In the AWA, he wrestled as Paul Caruso. So he went from Paul Caruso to Kurt Von Steiger, and his real name was Lorne Corlett. Didn't win any matches on television that I can recall here in the AWA, but as a tag team with his pseudo brother, the other Von Steiger, out particularly, I believe, in the Salt Lake area. He did very, very well. There is a match of Paul Caruso's on YouTube from 1966 in the AWA on television. He's introduced by Roger Kent, and he gets the absolute shit kicked out of him by Mad Dog Vachon. In Mad Dog's heel days, the old black and white footage, and the old Slickster, Slick Mick, at probably about age 2, is sitting in the audience for that TV taping. But yeah, again, not so legendary, but consistently on AWA TV. Paul Caruso.
Very nice. Okay, let's move on. We've got a few more here. Chris, let's pull up, looks like it's number 17 in our photo list.
There he is. Jimmy Doo. Jimmy Doo, Jimmy Doe, Jimmy never did. On AWA All-Star Wrestling. That's about the best picture of Jimmy Doo that I could find. It may be the only one on the internet. And you'll notice his hair is all disheveled and, you know, he looks kind of sweaty. He's waving to the crowd, folks, because he's being introduced there. So he had the disheveled, sweaty look when he got into the ring. He hadn't even wrestled yet. So it was Jimmy Doo, D-O-O. And Jimmy did not exactly make a big splash on AWA TV, but he was one of those guys, 1970s, 1980s, regular, but Jimmy Doo just plain didn't. There you go. Sorry, Jimmy. You did, you didn't, you do, you don't. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Big Jim.
What didn't Jimmy do?
He didn't do much of anything.
He sold. That was it.
Yeah, he sold. He didn't have any. But again, look at that. The man comes into the ring looking like he just wrestled 2 out of 3 falls.
Did you ever announce any of his matches, Mick?
Thank God, no.
Okay.
I did not. I didn't. I don't. No.
How would you have called one of his matches?
Oh my God, I don't know how I would have called it, but I would have had a lot of fun with it, Chris. Sir, you can just imagine where we would have gone with the Jimmy Doo. Jimmy left doo-doo. Jimmy is a pile of doo-doo at the end of that second fall. Bye-bye, Jimmy. Hit the bricks.
The whole question there, Chris, just brings me back to thinking of the old AWA and how Roger Kent was by himself. He was play-by-play and color commentary, a combination. And having to put over a match that really wasn't a match. You know, I give him credit looking back at it. Maybe that's where he came up with all of his, Katie bar the door and all of his other sayings. But it was really a 5-minute bullshit session. Seriously, how can you sell a match of Mad Dog Vachon against Jimmy Doo and try to make it even sound like it was?
Yeah, make it sound competitive. Yeah.
You basically use phrases like Katie bar the door, foot or horseback. He doesn't know what planet he's on. He burned his tongue on a French fry earlier today. And then all of a sudden you're at the 4-minute and 40-second mark and there isn't a lot left to do. Pardon the expression. Jimmy Doo's brother to do. And I believe they lived in the mountains. So they had the Mountain Dew going and the to-do and big to-do. There we go. You got anybody left?
Big to-do is when you gain weight.
There, boom.
All right, what do we got?
Moving on to do. Our next one is going to be number 18.
The best I could do.
Standing over some poor soul.
The best you could do.
The best I could do to find a picture of Angel Rivera was put this photo of Nick, and Nick has just pile-drived Angel Rivera into oblivion. Angel, again, probably weighed about $160, dripping wet. He came in from Chicago. His wife, Ann, was the sweetest gal in the world. I got to know her pretty well, and when Angel came into the ring, we would look at each other, Ann and I, just before the finish, because we knew the finish was coming sooner than later. And Angel Rivera, you remember that Lord James Blair's swan dive when he took the bump in the Bockwinkel-Hogan match? Angel Rivera looked like a piece of cardboard floating to the mat time after time. He would get hit with a punch or a sledgehammer, and seriously, he would pirouette, he would do a waltz and everything else before he hit the canvas. He would get up and he would look around, shake his head, and say, "Ay, caramba!" And then he would leave the ring. And that was the extent of Angel Rivera. But when you talk about the guys that were consistently on television, man, Angel was right up there. I wouldn't say he's legendary, but ay caramba, Angel Rivera.
I think he is legendary. I think that's where Bart Simpson got his catchphrase from, was from Angel Rivera. Ay caramba.
I guarantee Angel never saw any royalties from that either, but you know.
Hank Azaria was an AWA
out of
fan.
that one.
Oh, yeah.
Have we got one more or two more? What do we got?
We got one more here. Actually, we got two more, but we got one more here.
There's an enhancement guy. If anybody ever enhanced the AWA program, it was Stanley Blackburn. Talk about a guy who periodically appeared in the AWA, probably 3-4 times a year, of course. Stanley, we have mentioned this ad nauseum. Nice tie, though. Stanley was a fictitious president of the AWA. He was actually an attorney and landowner from Texas, a friend of Vern Gagne's, did some promoting down in Texas. But whenever there was going to be a controversial match, controversial decision, old Stanley Blackburn would pick up that coach cabin airfare from the AWA. He would come in from San Antonio, Texas. He would make a decision that pissed everybody off, and then he would go home. And that was the extent of Stanley Blackburn's role in the AWA. Coincidentally, if something wasn't real serious, Stanley would always be able to review the footage in San Antonio. If there was something really big, like Bockwinkel Gagne in 1975, amazingly, the footage was not there. They didn't tape that night. So Stanley avoided the heat. He didn't avoid the heat when Bockwinkel and Hogan met at Super Sunday. But there you go. The premier AWA enhancement guy, Stanley Blackburn.
I was before I started working for the AWA in 1985. I was a fan, and so let's see, probably 20 some odd years of watching the AWA and hearing Stanley Blackburn's name. And you saw him, as you mentioned, Mick, you saw him periodically. I wonder how much, not how much a UA, but how much Vern paid Stanley Blackburn to be the AWA presidential folly.
How much are you pay ya?
How much are you pay? Seriously, what did Vern pay for this guy to come in and fuck up an angle? It wasn't that Stanley fucked it up, but just to be involved in a questionable situation.
Here's what I would guess, because I didn't have access to the AWA's payroll logs. I would guess that Stanley probably came in for an airline ticket, maybe $300-400. Maybe Vern took him out fishing the next day, and then sent him back home to San Antonio. He certainly didn't pay him enough to get shit thrown at him at the St. Paul Civic Center. I'm sure that at that point Stanley wanted some kind of a salary bump. But back in the day, you look at some of the old pay stubs online or whatever, a couple $300 and an airline ticket, and he was good to go.
I wonder if Vern sprung for the dry cleaning after Super Sunday, because Stanley got a little beer soaked.
Are you kidding? Shit. Spring for the dry cleaning. Okay.
Piss people off and then leave. Sounds like another show.
That's right. Chris, we got one more, don't we?
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
I thought this was about enhancement talent. I got the enhancement part, but where's the talent come in with this photo?
You know,
Well, I thought you guys, I mean, we're all about the enhancement. So that's kind of when I wanted to pump you guys up a little bit.
God, and that's about 30 pounds ago for me.
no, I see what you did there, Chris. The enhancement and the pumping up.
Yeah.
I see what you did. I might have gone over Chupik's head, but I got it.
No, I just refuse to listen.
There's a couple of guys. I don't know.
You're gonna
how
no
much
sell
they
it. Yeah, well, I'm gonna make you sell it. I'm gonna keep doing this until you sell it.
He's not kidding, Chris or Joe. For the next 87 shows, provided we live that long, he's gonna remind you that this actually was taken. The reason that there's a thumbs up there, that's my thumb, I believe.
That's why you needed enhancement. Okay,
that's exactly right. I'm pointing out exactly why I needed enhancement. We were posing for a picture with Sodbuster Kenny J at the time at Joe's Elaborate Studios in Invergrove Heights, Minnesota. But there you go. You talk about guys who really didn't enhance much of anything by their presence in the AWA. One guy got stiffed on paydays from Vern. The other guy had his tuxedo torn and his Adam's apple ripped out. So, I think in the scheme of things, Joe, I think we did pretty well. Joe,
I'm still trying. I'm like, wow. I remember doing the podcast in the studio and so forth. I don't remember that picture. And again, that was, my God, I was about 30 pounds heavier back in those days. But yeah, I'm going to stick with it.
We know.
I don't think we enhanced anything, and we certainly have, well, talent that could fit, but shall we just say little, very little talent.
And I know, and Chris, the thumb is actually the star of this picture. We know it is. I mean, we can get around all we want, but the thumb is that's the focus of the picture. What a couple of man, you hit a sore spot with me there, buddy. Oh no, you're being generous right now. Oh God. Oh Lord. Well, that's it. Pretty much over with. Oh, what a show. I really enjoyed this. Good show.
Yeah, and a lot of these names I'd never heard of, or I didn't really know the backstories. So it is kind of fun to kind of go a little bit further back in the vault, and kind of, because there are some shows where we've kind of gotten away from some of the, the 60s and 70s, the stuff that some of us don't know. So thank you for suggesting this and kind of taking it in a direction that I wasn't sure, but I'm really happy that we did.
I'm glad we got the guys a nod of the head and the tip of the cap. Yeah. They earned it.
Yeah, and again, they deserve it. We've pounded this point home so many times. They helped make the Stars back in the day. They were willing to go out there, look like complete utter failures as professional wrestlers, in all honesty.
Yeah, she could have stopped the provision
and put those guys over. As far as that last photo, Mick, if we were a tag team, I don't think we would put anybody. We could put anybody over.
Joe, we would be the tag team of the Big Fat Bastards, I believe, out of Moline, Illinois. We would be the modern day Ding Dongs.
Yeah, I think the Iron Duke and Jim Mitchell could have, or actually the same person. Iron Duke and Herman Schaefer could have beaten us.
Straight out of the double wide.
Easily in the ring.
Double wide.
Straight out of the double wide.
Oh, my God. What do we got coming up next week?
I think we got Eric Bischoff. I think we got Eric Part 2 coming up. So we'll record that on Wednesday, I believe, is what we've got scheduled. And, of course, if you're seeing this via Premiere, the Pinfall, you're going to get on Monday. Otherwise, the rest of it, we'll record Bischoff tomorrow for the rest of you, and we'll drop it next week. And then maybe we'll do a show about referees. And then if you guys still want to give us some suggestions for the heels that you like to cheer, send it awaunleashedpodcast@gmail.com. Did I do that right, guys? Because I know I wanted to keep it open a little bit longer because it was the baby faces that you hated, right? Is the one that we did.
Yeah, the one that we did, and this was the heels that you cheered.
Right. And we're still opening that up. So awaunleashedpodcast@gmail.com. Nothing on social media, guys, because it's great to have the interaction, but it's just things kind of get lost in threads, and I don't have a chance to really grab everything. Here I can copy and paste, and I can format the emails into the spreadsheet. So anything else before we get to shout outs and then we'll bounce?
No, I think we're good. Joe and I are going to go get enhanced immediately after the show here, but
give your shout outs before you
for the enhancement.
Pump it up. Sorry.
Go ahead. We've gone off the rails again.
My shout out goes to Drew Murphy. What a loyal guy this is. He's always contributing with comments and suggestions, and he's a big fan of the podcast and our Facebook pages. So, Drew, you're the man. Thank you, buddy.
Before I give my shout out this week, every week, or a lot of weeks, I should say, I always ask Chris and Mick, hey, give me a shout out, give me somebody. Not every week, but oftentimes. And so this week, rather than smelling the smoke burning from them trying to think of somebody to give me, I went on our AWA Unleashed Facebook page, and I came across somebody who I believe is from the Las Vegas area, but was posting so many posters of shows from the old Showboat Hotel. And it was a special time for me, just really starting in the AWA and seeing a lot of those posters. A lot of them were even before I started making the trip out there. And so this week, I'm going to give my shout out to Andreas Goldfuss. And so thank you for posting those on our Facebook page. Great memories, and thank you for being a part of the AWA Unleashed Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, whatever you want to call it. Thank you for being a part.
Yeah, I said the AWA Unleashed Army. I haven't said it in a while. I'll have to start using that. Of course, I throw shit out there all the time, and sometimes I just forget about it because I say so much goofy crap.
Chris, the three of us throw shit out every single week for an hour.
That's true, and most of it just slides on down. Sometimes things stick, but I'm going to go with John Beckstrom because John is one of our Patreon members, and our last live chat was the first one that he had a chance to experience, and he said that he loved it. So thank you, John. And if you guys want to become a Patreon member, a Pinfall, I'm telling you guys, honestly, $4.99 a month. Yeah. All kidding aside, you get a thank you letter from me. You get a sticker and a magnet. You get access to the podcast a day early. You get exclusive watch-alongs, which is like Mystery Science Theater meets, our voiceover, which we also have our live chats once a month. We've got exclusive interviews. The latest one with Ken Anderson just dropped. So it's fun. We enjoy it. And if you guys enjoy the podcast, it's a way to get more. And the more people we have sign up to Patreon, the more content we can put out there. So, I mean, if you want more AWA Unleashed, this is a way to kind of help make that happen.
Very much so. And in all seriousness, as you said, Chris, we really appreciate everybody. We've done a lot of shows here, and we're still getting an awful lot of viewers and downloads. And it's heartwarming, and we love you guys. Thank you. Thank you very much.
But Chris, I got to call you out. I mean, you told them about why they should spend $5 a month. Yeah. Just admit it. Part of those funds, good portion of those funds that you get, go for you to get your Blue Chew enhancement. So you are indeed an enhancement talent.
No. I am Mick, and I am Joe, and I am here to pump me up.